The Women's Fund for Scotland is Scotland's only dedicated fund for women and girls. I'm Susan Morrison, and this is our podcast where we talk to inspiring women improving the lives of those women and girls today. In this episode, we speak to Kalpana from User and Carer Involvement. We'll be talking about hens and pygmy goats. It does have something to do with working with women and girls, but you'll just have to listen up to find out. Kalpana, your organisation, Users and Carer Involvement.
That's correct.
And what is it you get up to? Down there, I believe you're down in Dumfries and Galloway.
We are in Dumfries and Galloway, yeah. We were based in Dumfries, but we cover the whole of Dumfries and Galloway. And we primarily work with people with learning difficulties, disabilities, and or autism, or just a general, even if it's undiagnosed, a sort of learning, additional support needs that's around learning. So they can have some physical disabilities, but primarily it's around the learning needs. So we run a variety of projects. Some of them are art-based. Some of them are the women's only group, the Hens Den, they've named themselves. All of our projects are around confidence building and speaking up and speaking out when you want to. That's what underpins the projects. But the activities are around arts, music, or skills, confidence building. And it's very much directed by the participants. So it changes. It's very fluid and it's very much directed by what they want and their needs. So that's kind of what we do.
So before we come on to the women's only group, let's go back to your organisation, because that is an enormous geographic spread you're talking about there, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, this is not enough of a challenge. Let's take in the whole place. So you're talking to and about, and you're advocating to and about for people in two levels. One is the rural areas, and we don't always appreciate how social deprivation can really hit rural. And secondly, groups of people, those with learning difficulties, autism, etc., who can be very, very isolated. And that's a double whammy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how on earth do you do your job?
I have to say that, and although COVID was awful and, it still continued to have its effects, coming on to doing these kind of hybrid sessions and meetings and opportunities was like a godsend, really. And I do appreciate, obviously, in some rural areas, the Wi-Fi is a bit patchy and it's not that good. So we've had to use a variety of methods like telephones or, people on WhatsApp or, just holding up a phone to the screen, whatever. We've tried everything. But that has actually kind of forced us in a good way, in a very quick way. I think it's something that we would have looked at eventually, but it made us kind of almost overnight go to this hybrid model. And through that, we were able to engage with lots more people that we wouldn't have done.
But nothing beats face-to-face.
Face-to-face. No, absolutely not. Nothing does beat face-to-face.
And you have a lot of activities that are actually face-to-face. And I looked at it, the sheer scale of what you're doing is amazing. You must be exhausted down there.
24/7, yeah.
So, all right, I'm slightly disappointed though, because I read you got funding for the Women's Fund for Scotland. I thought it was actually for a hen's shed. I thought it was for hens.
Oh, right. For actual chooks, no, sorry, not.
I'm a total city rat, right? I get really nervous when I can't see a motorway, right? So I just assume that all country people have got chickens.
I'd love to have chickens. My husband won't let me have any, but no. But maybe if the Hens Den get their own little small holding, we could have some hens and, I don't know, some pygmy goats or something. I don't know. Never say never. If the women want it, we can try and get it for them.
You see, the trouble is I now think I've planted the seed of something potentially terrifying, because you're straight in there with the hens and the pygmy goats, right in there. So now that I've got over my disappointment that it's not actually chickens, I'm actually even more thrilled to discover that it's for hens, for women.
Yes.
So what did you use that funding for? So
we actually used that funding to speak to the women that we already have. And it was a small group they had in Dumfries. It was to try and find out what it was that they really wanted, but also to go out to the other localities. We had a couple of sort of pop-up events across the 4 localities, Nithsdale, the Stewartry, Wigtonshire, and the out in Stranraer. So we went to these different localities. We had a couple of pop-up sessions for women to drop in and just sort of have a chat with us. And we did some things, we used some art materials, we used different ways of communicating with people, because not everybody's able to articulate what they want. So we did a couple of sessions just around feelings or what, big picture, like blue sky thinking, what is it you want? And then we try and sort of, see what is it that we could do, or what's the need. And then we also met with some professionals and also just letting people know what we do and that we want to get out there in the community more.
So the Women's Fund for Scotland helped kick the whole thing off.
Yeah.
The name of your organisation really interests me as well because it's users and carers.
Yeah.
I don't usually see the two under one umbrella like that. So why did you decide that you were going to work with users and their carers?
So historically, Youth and Care Involvement's been around for about 25 years now. And it started off originally as a project for carers, for people that had mental illness. And it started off with just a volunteer, and it just sort of was a sort of a support thing, kind of. And then over the years, it's grown, and we worked with people with, still continue to work with people with mental illness, and then dementia, and then laterally learning disabilities. And I came on board as a learning disabilities development worker in about 2015. And just over a period of sort of natural growth and evolution, we moved more into the learning disabilities sphere because we found that was more of a need. And for people with dementia and for people with mental illness, there was quite a lot of service provided, and it was like, we're a very small organization. So it wasn't about competing, it was about what do we do best and how can we do that more effectively. And of course, it's a funding background. So it had been historically commissioned. And in 2020, we lost the commissioning, which I think is the best thing that ever happened to us, because commissioning is a bit of a double-edged sword, because they give you the money, but you have to do what they tell you to do, and that's not always where the need is. So I'm very much about where the need is and what people want and how can we best meet that need.
When these women come together, what is it that they want to do?
Okay, so first of all, and I need to correct you only because there is a thing called the hen shed, and we're not the hen shed.
Okay.
So you know how there's men's sheds?
Yeah, I think men's sheds are great.
So there is now a hen's shed, which is the equivalent of a men's shed. So they do similar kind of activities, right? But our women they call themselves the hen's shed before hen's sheds arrived. But because it's a kind of affiliated thing to the men's shed, they just usurped that name, which is fine. So the ladies, we said, well, let's call ourselves something different, because then there's confusion about what it is that we did. So they decided themselves that what to call the hen's den. So they've developed their own logo, and they're all, that's what they want to be called. So that's what it is. So in the past, they've had a sort of 4-week rolling block of activities. So 1 week, they meet once a week. And 1 week they want to have like just a coffee and a catch up. And then the second week they want to do something around something creative. So it could be arts and crafts. So it's about bringing and sharing and upskilling themselves and upskilling us. And then another week we have training. So we've had external providers coming to give us some training on first aid. We've had sexual health. And then the 4th week they wanted something around getting people in, like citizens advice, or the DWP or FedCap or other, so that they were coming into the women's safer, brave space, so they could come into our space. And of course, then I could prep people in advance, saying, these are the communication needs of the ladies, or these are the kind of questions they might be asking. So that's the kind of things that we do.
Oh, the hen's den sounds brilliant. So it means that the hens come in and they sit down and they decide what it is that they want, which is, I think, is amazing. How empowering is that? And then they come out and you can find it. Because sometimes actually sourcing the people to do that is the awkward bit.
Yeah.
You can do that for them.
Yeah.
There's no end to the ambition then you've unleashed.
No, absolutely. And at the moment going forward, they've decided, because obviously the cost of living is it's everywhere, and it's really hard. And some of these ladies, because you don't have a diagnosis, they're living on next to nothing. But what they said they wanted to do was make some clothes. So we're looking at sort of simple, we've got a sewing machine, and we looked at how to make some simple clothes, or repurposing what you have. So things like, if your button comes off, and how to change a button, or fix a hem, or all that kind of stuff, and some of the skills are difficult. So we look at things like, well, how do you use WonderWeb? How do you use other things that you could maybe help rather than just using a machine? We've also looked at like bulk cooking and looking at like buying things. So what have you got in your store cupboard? How would we cook those? We've done a few wellbeing sessions around just looking after yourself, being kind to each other, and, sort of simple hand massages. You're just doing it for yourself. Things that happen, you do some mindfulness sessions, things like that. I mean, I'm skipping ahead, but the plan is that they will be a constituted group of their own, right? So we want to give them all the skills and all the abilities that they can then go on and do that for themselves. That's always been the plan.
Well, let's ask about the carers then. I mean, because it's that two halves that you have.
Yes, so we do work with, it was carers of people that had learning disabilities. And thankfully now, because of medical science, people are living longer. So the people with learning disabilities are now becoming carers of their older parents, or shock horror. Some people with learning disabilities are actually married and have children, so they're becoming the carers for their partners, or so we're working with people that are carers that they themselves have learning disabilities. So we're moving into sort of another, and again, it's about being responsive and recognizing what's happening in front of us. So we're trying to support people that have the disability who are carers, and to make sure that they have the rights they have access to rights, and support you, or just see you, and try and connect them up with other carers, I suppose.
But actually, just saying that, we see you, because being a carer can be an incredibly lonely position, because
absolutely
your time's taken up all the time, and you're worried about somebody all the time. But the fact that there's an organisation there that knows that you are there, it must be a tremendous benefit to them.
I hope so, because I think we do touch or connect with a lot of people, and then they don't always come back straight away. But I know that they know that we're there. We're not a service that says, right, you've had 12 weeks, that's it, you're away. We're there forever, basically, until you die if you want. So they can drop in and out, we're just there.
And I'm glad you are, but I love the way you say it, we're just there. It's like,
we are just there.
Yeah, you better believe it, that we're definitely there. And again, especially if you are a carer in a rural area, and I'm not dissing Dumfries, right, just because I'm your city rat, but it's much smaller. And again, once again, you've got isolation as a huge issue.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you seem combating that.
Yeah, and I think, again, things like public transport, it's a nightmare. So we try and get out wherever we can. We've done a couple of pop-up art sessions and stuff, and sometimes it's just sort of being connected. Like, people can phone me, or sometimes I say I'm available. The staff will be around Tuesday, 3:00 till 4. You can drop in for a Zoom, or you can phone, or so it's just kind of, we don't always have people doing that, but I think they feel assured that we're around if they need us.
I think that means a lot to people who are caring, and to people who have learning difficulties as well, and women, because that's the other thing. A lot of caring responsibilities disproportionately fall on women, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Which is where I can see the Hen's Den coming back into operation. So let's go back to the Hen's Den, because you said that you're hoping it spins off.
Yes, yeah, that was always the plan. So when we originally adopted them, so what happened, I think 2018, late 2018, some of our colleagues in the NHS and the community, they were having a lot of referrals for women that were going around the services as such. So they didn't actually have any medical needs, but it just kept presenting at GPs or at A&Es or whatever. And they were just being passed around different NHS groups. So then a couple of my colleagues recognized this, and all of our members have experienced some kind of domestic abuse, sexual assault, violent crime, financial abuse, in the care system. They're all had a lot of trauma. So these ladies, they didn't have as such physical needs at the NHS, but they were like, obviously there's a need. And these ladies were in inappropriate relationships, in harmful situations. So they're like how do we support these ladies to, yes, live their lives independently, but perhaps make more appropriate friendships? Because a lot of the women were lonely, isolated, and desperate for connection and friendship. So you could be lonely and isolated in the middle of Dumfries town. So people sort of seem to think you're like, in the Highlands or Islands. It's not always that. It's about you within yourself and how you connect to other people. But obviously, our colleagues in the NHS recognised they couldn't really take them any further, because they couldn't give them any health treatment because they didn't need health, and they can't apply for funding. So I had been into the group a couple of times to talk about some consultations that we were doing. So because I'd had a relationship with the women and the staff that were there, they had asked us just before lockdown whether we would take the Hens sort of under our wing. So that's what we did. And then, of course, lo and behold, 2020, March, it was like COVID. So we just grabbed these women and we went onto Facebook. We just did like messenger chat. And then we just went on Zoom, and then the rest is history. So they just became part of UCI. So we've been with us since then. But the plan always was, because I spoke to the women about it, and what they wanted to do was they wanted to run like a cafe or a drop-in place where women like them could come, but they would want to run it. So that idea has evolved slightly, but they still want to be constituted, and they still want to do something for women like them. I want UCI to be redundant. I want us to, help everybody. Move somewhere else. These women, one day women don't need us anymore. We'll find other women, or we'll find something else that people need. We don't just hold on to people for the sake of having them.
Isn't that brilliant? The fact that you've taken some women, perhaps who other people were just side-eyeing them, like, oh, aye, right, her, oh, aye. And now you've turned them into people who can lead organisations.
Well, they've done it for themselves. We've supported them. Yeah, we did help, but they've done it. They had the potential. It's about giving them the confidence to realise they can be, that nothing is impossible. Anything's possible. You just have to try. And we do it in a different way. But it doesn't matter how we do it. We do it different to other people, but that doesn't make it any less. It's just magical. I've got confidence, right? So I don't really, I'm not confident in some places, but generally. But when you see these ladies, they come to the groups with their heads down, they don't talk, they don't make eye contact. And now they're up giving, presentations in front of, hundreds of their peers, health and social care, partnership things. It's amazing, but it's them. They had it in them all the time. It was just about giving them the opportunities or the confidence to give it a go and to feel that they're supported.
They had it in them all the time, but it took support and encouragement from UCI and people like you to bring it out. We live in a small country and there aren't enough of us, and I blame young people because they're just not breeding enough. And that I've done my bit, but I too. There you go. And every single human being that we've got, we should be developing their potential. And you're right out there showing us how to do it. That is absolutely fantastic. I'm also thrilled by the fact that you're saying that you want to make yourself out of business.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
And of course, we now know why.
Because I want to go to the farm. My small holding, go pick my goats and just shut myself in.
One final thing, did you say you were 4'9"?
I am 4'9".
Jeez, oh, you are a force of nature at 4'9".
I know. I always say nothing is impossible. Even impossible has I'm in it. So I'm possible.
Thank you for joining us and listening to this story. I hope you've been inspired. And if you would like to support the Women's Fund for Scotland, search for us online and listen out for our other podcast episodes.